They sailed forward. Their sails were full and straining in their haste. They needed to get to the port. The Bako Kujira had left its mark on the ship. A curse was among them. That was obvious. His men were arguing. It could be heard in the riggings and from below deck. Captain Locke was getting a headache from it all. He didn't have much time. They would have to gamble it as they sailed over the waters. His eyes stayed locked on each and every wave. He barked orders to his crew. They readied harpoons, weapons, and cannons. It would come at any moment. No, it would come. There, something breached the water, green and black. It was scaly and thicker than a man is tall. There one moment and gone the next. Captain Locke shifted about. His fingers twitched. Another segment of scales burst from the ocean. Water cascaded down the side. This was a bigger section. Cries went up from his men, but the captain called them. It wasn't time. If it would just attack, they could get it over with, but no, it was waiting. They knew it was here. He could see it as it brought another segment of its long body above the water. Before they could fire, it was gone. A roar filled the air as the head of the beast ruptured from the water. Rows of razor-sharp teeth filled the massive hole in the long snout. A forked tongue flicked through the air. The Sea Serpent was here. It dove back beneath the water, sending a wave which rocked the boat. Captain Locke grabbed onto the railing to steady himself. Bursting forth once more, the serpent's head rose beside the ship and kept going up until it was above the mast. In a smooth arc, it plunged down on the other side of the sapphire swan, before he could even speak. They were trapped in a prison of scales that grew tighter by the second. Captain Locke took a deep breath. Welcome back to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. If there is one monster of the ocean which could be called legendary, it would be the Sea Serpent. But what is this creature? Let's take a look at this mysterious creature. What is a dragon? I know that sounds like a strange question, but it is an important topic today. The sea serpent is a massive serpentine creature that dwells in the ocean. There are multiple stories where it comes from. In some tellings, Tiamat, one of the first gods of Mesopotamia, had a serpentine body in some descriptions. You also have the Leviathan in Judeo-Christian mythos, who was struck down by God. This is just a couple of the serpents of mythos. Throw in a few accounts of scared and unreliable sailors, and we've got our creature. They all share a similar description, yet there is a problem. Some people call it a sea serpent, a sea dragon by others. But what is a dragon? Tell me, what is this? A European dragon? And this? A Chinese dragon? What about the Tarask? It is dragon-like. What about a wyvern? Is it a dragon? What about the horned and feathered serpents of the Americas? Maybe? So what about the sea serpent? Is it a dragon? So what makes a dragon? The ones we just talked about have a variety of appearances. Some with wings, some with 2 legs, others 4. The older dragons in legend usually have a more serpent appearance. So what do they share? Most dragons are large and physically powerful. They wield powerful magical abilities. Some are intelligent, others not so. So we have a range here. Great. They all have magical powers. That gives us something to work with. Magical with a reptilian appearance. Or is it simply a very powerful creature with a reptilian design? Iffy, but it is a starting point for dragon biology. So, does the sea serpent have a breath attack? Some form of magic? Most accounts of it attacking a ship involves it wrapping its body around the ship and dragging it underwater, which isn't a magical ability. That is just the basic constrictor snake. Yet there are a few tales where it can spew water from its mouth. Some claim that the sea serpent can split a ship in 2 with its attack. But can you spit water from your mouth? Hold it in there and then push out? Knock over an empty cup? Yeah, this isn't the best example. I mean, there is the archerfish, which is known to do exactly this. That isn't a magical animal. The only thing that makes me wonder is if their attack is magical, is if the amount of water is so high that it could not be held within the serpent's mouth or the connecting tracks. Yet there is an example of a sea serpent with a breath attack. According to some sources, the Leviathan could breathe fire. That could put it in the dragon family. An easy way to create fire for it would be to extract sodium from the seawater, something that is very plentiful. Pure sodium is flammable and explosive in water, both abundant for this creature. That would leave the deadly chlorine gas inside it, but that could explain the Leviathan's fatal breath. Lightning is another option here, in which case we are looking at how eels do it using their electrocytes. Oh, to make it even better, there are even reports that the Leviathan has laser eyes. I'll address this in more detail when I look at the basilisk. What if their magic is different? The body should be heavy, yes, so heavy that they will sink unless supported. Would an air bladder be able to hold a sea serpent and keep it from sinking to the ocean depths? I don't think so. But I've got an explanation for those later. What other traits can we look at? How does it breathe? Does it have gills? If it has gills, then we could consider putting the sea serpent as a strain of giant eel and not a dragon. The largest eels are the European congers, and they're just under 10 feet or about 3 meters. The eels aren't known for relying on constriction to hunt. So, do sea serpents have gills? Well, as you can probably guess, everything I found said that they looked like a snake with a dragon-like head. Not once did I see anything about them having gills. So no. But this does bring into question, how does a sea serpent breathe? What about sea snakes? Probably the most similar creature to the sea serpent. Regular sea snakes need to surface to draw breath, but can absorb some oxygen through their scales. But doesn't this sea serpent have thicker hide? One that is hard to pierce? One where it wouldn't work? Okay, what about the areas between the scales? Those could be thin enough to allow for oxygen exchange by keeping blood flow close to the surface. To improve water flow around those areas, muscles could be attached to the base of each scale to lift them up, similar to how the hair on a cat or a dog can stick up, or your arm with goosebumps. This could even create a current with a flapping motion. Yet, this could make the sea serpent more susceptible to bleeding. I mentioned an air bladder before to help support the sea serpent, but funny enough, the sea snakes doesn't have one. Nope, they have a modified lung. Most snakes, their lungs only comprise a small section of their body, but sea snake have theirs stretch out far along the whole chest cavity, right along the spine and digestive tract. This will require a little reworking of the diaphragm and rearranging the organs, but nothing too outrageous. There are two more additions from sea snakes I would like to take. First is reshaping the tail into a paddle shape to help it swim. The second is an addition to living berths. This would prevent it from coming to land to lay eggs. With all we have here, I would say yes, the sea serpent is a dragon. So how is it related to the others? Without genetics, I'm basing my placement on morphology. A genetic sample would make this much more accurate. Generally, I'm putting dragons into two major subgroups. Serpentine, which includes the Asian dragons, sea serpents, and perhaps the feathered and horned serpents of the Americas when we get to them. The other being the limbed draconoids, which include the European dragons, tarasques, drakes, and wyverns. We'll get to those in time. So, now that we understand what we are fighting, how do we defeat it? First thing is the wait. It will wait until you are defenseless, and then attack. Having a predator looking just out of range, taunting you, that can wear you down, stress you out, and make you waste your strength. You could be a fool and fire your cannons at nothing in the water. Don't. Make sure your aim is true. Reloading a cannon isn't quick, and a cannon will be your best weapon here. That might be able to punch through the sea serpent's scales. If not, it will bruise the muscle and organs underneath. When the serpent attacks, it may try to spit water. A solid blow to the side risks capsizing your ship. Turn your ship to face the serpent. That is the best way to mitigate the damage if you are hit. But I don't like that. No, not at all. You want to prevent the impact. First option is to create a wall in the water. The easiest way is to use ice magic. Make an iceberg to shield you. Just be careful. Most of it will be below water, so you'll need a lot of force to create it. Also, salt water freezes at a lower temperature than regular water. A bonus could be that you ensnare the Sea Serpent, preventing it from moving as well. Now, without that attack, the Sea Serpent attacks by coiling around the ship and pulling it under. This is dangerous for both the ship and the Serpent. That pulls it into melee range, point blank for cannons, fire, lightning, and ice. But like most dragons, it will resist your spells. So your mages will have to work extra hard. Here you can try and work a sword or spear in between the scales. The usual works. But the skin opens up a new avenue. Poison. A thin membrane-like skin that absorbs oxygen could leave it vulnerable to toxic ooze that seeps right between the scales. You want something that doesn't dissolve in salt water. Something sticky, right? Well, not necessarily. What if we go simple? Now, I'm not just blowing smoke with this one, but actually I want to. That skin could be easily agitated by smoke, and may cause it to back off to the safety of the water. Sure, it could then try ramming your ship from below. That is why I would reinforce the keel of your ship. Use a more durable wood, or rust-resistant metal. That last one could be a problem. I mentioned fire breathing. The Leviathan was known to boil the water around ships. This would cook the crew from inside. Wood can insulate you somewhat, but that doesn't stop the sails catching fire or the sweltering steam that rises up. Metal? Not a chance. It'll turn into an oven and you're dead. Yes, reinforced wood would work better. Except, wood will burn to its fire breath. You'll need that ice wall up ahead of time. You can create a wall of water, too. Both will help in this situation. Overall, you'll literally be in the frying pan or in the fire here. Ice and wind magic can help you escape. Ideally, I would cover your ship in spikes and barbs to make it difficult and painful to grab onto. Just like hugging a cactus. Perfect to guard against something like a sea serpent when it goes in close. There is a reason that the sea serpent has maintained such a pervasive position in the hierarchy of mythical creatures. It can attack at any moment. It can make the most of its environment. Hard scales for protection and powerful attacks. All of these are the reasons that I am putting the Sea Serpent at the 10 of 10 for difficulty. If you find yourself in the territory of this creature, be careful. So, you fell the sea dragon. What comes of it? Of course, dragon meat shouldn't be discarded. It's rather tasty. That from sea dragon works well grilled in rice balls. Oh, I've got a nice teriyaki recipe for sea serpent. There's a lot you can come up with. I'm sure you've got a few that you'd like to share. After that, you've got scales. Not fish scales, but dragon scales. These are tough, magical resistant to boot. How about some nice armor made for them? Sounds good. You'd also coat your ship in them. Definitely a nice haul. Then there are the alchemical components. Blood, bile, saliva are just a few of the things sought out. They can use in magical resistance potions, healing, water breathing, and the list goes on. After that, there are the bones. If brought back to land, you can use them in construction. The challenge is retrieving them. The sea serpent is heavy and it will sink. You'll want to inflate its large lungs to make it float. You can also use buoy it with ice magic. With this trick, you'll have time to work. The serpent tightening its hold on the sapphire swan. Scales press against the wooden surface. Fire! Captain Locke roared as the cannon sang out. The serpent screamed as it crashed back into the water. Let's get moving! The ship kept going forward, except steam was rising from the water. Looking over the surface, it began to boil. Sweat ran down the man's face. It was getting warm. That's when the sails went limp. Their favorable wind lost before the rising steam. Horror filled the captain's face. The air was rising, not blowing, and that meant he pulled his magic and created his own flames. They stirred up a wind, but not enough to get the ship moving. This was bad. If they couldn't move, they were dead. The sea serpent rose from the boiling sea. Flames jumped in its mouth. It was about to attack. The cannons weren't ready. Captain Lork's mind scrambled as he thought of a spell, any that might help here, but it came up empty. He had nothing he could do. They were helpless. He slammed his hand down on the railings in frustration. No, not now. He was so close to fulfilling his promise. That fruit, he could practically taste it. Something wet struck his face. It was cold. Looking up, he saw rain falling from the sky as dark clouds approached, and with it, the sound of thunder. The Sea Serpent shouldn't be underestimated, and has sank many ships over the ages. Thanks for watching, adventurers. Please return next week, where the Thunderbird will be approaching. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.